what's my experience been like with TAs? I have had a TA when I've had a larger class, and I have been lucky in that all of my TAs have been doctoral students that were interested in teaching. So that they have been very motivated and kind of willing to do everything it takes to pull off a classroom experience.
I've had a few classes where the TAs were instructing a small group as part of a larger lecture, and I've also had classes where the TAs were more of an administrative role.
I probably have two different kinds of interactions with students around classwork, and one would be I teach courses, methods courses, where I'll have a teaching assistant who does the practicum supervision, and so that student will actually be part of the class but actually has a role outside of the class that's pretty independent, actually, the part outside the class. And then I also have students who will come in and do several class sessions in a course that I'm teaching, really just to get experience in university teaching. Those are probably the two primary ways that I've worked with students inside coursework.
So my experiences with TAs has been pretty positive. They've always been really willing to help me with things that I've been looking for, gathering information, answering questions on homework, helping me with tests, and it's just been a very positive experience overall.
I can't tell you exactly when I first started using one, but it's a good, I'd say a good at least 17 years that I've used a TA. And the TA has always also been my graduate research assistant, so I haven't separated the role out.
Most of them have been pretty good. It's easier to, I guess, kind of interact with them because they're closer to our age than a lot of the professors, and so they kind of understand more where the students are coming from sometimes. But sometimes I felt that they maybe aren't as knowledgeable in the subject area that they're teaching, or they have to refer back to the professor or another professor, which is kind of frustrating sometimes when you're trying to get questions asked.
Usually what I expect of a TA is that they clarify information that is not very apparent in the large-scale lecture, or they're available to help after the class in preparing for an exam or with an assignment.
In all cases, I expect the students to be acting like any other university faculty member, really, in terms of professionalism. And of course, I'm oftentimes working with students who are out in school sites, and in that case, they need to also have that sort of professionalism where they're working like teachers work in schools. So their dress needs to look professional, even down to those sorts of things we always think about. In terms of skills, it sort of depends on what their role is. If they are doing supervision out in the field, then of course I'm expecting that they have had some experience teaching themselves, and that we can work together on some of the kinds of things that we're hoping our students are practicing or experiencing out in the field, and how to evaluate that and how to give feedback. I don't always expect them to have all those skills when they come, but I certainly expect them to be ready to develop those skills.
The expectations I have for a TA is that they come to class, that they host office hours, and that they're willing to help us via email or in person.
Have a wide knowledge of that subject and be able to relate it maybe to other information we may have learned in other core classes.
Tried to make it a two-way street so that I talk about the support I need, and then what the TAs are interested in getting out of that class. I have been spending time in the dean's office particularly, so I'm very kind of cognizant of this, trying to set up developmental sequences in teaching for students. So realizing that if they're a first-time TA, there's certain things they're probably comfortable with or need some skills and knowledge they need. If they're second-time TA, they move on, and then we try to do a sequence where they can co-instruct and then become course instructor. So I've had very good luck as a faculty member in having, motivated, knowledgeable grad students at all levels. So either a first-year student, or more recently, I have a co-instructor who's a third-year doc student who's co-teaching a class with me. I want them to be joint participant in the teaching experience. Like I said, I've been lucky so that all the TAs I've worked with, that's been a goal of theirs. If in the future I have a TA who is doing this to help support their tuition and isn't as interested in the teaching, I would still expect for us to come to an agreement about what I need and what they would like to get out of the class. So I need support in planning. we try to update every year. So, and it's a lot of work to get, even if you've taught a class before, the class prep. So again, making that joint participatory in terms of what I'm interested in doing and what he or she is interested in doing. Physically laying out the course, and I like to have a lot of guest speakers to have a little change in who the students have to listen to. So coordinating that, and so usually the TAs help me identify guest speakers that they think would be interesting, as well as help me with that. We kind of negotiate if they want to do any teaching, if they would like to do a small presentation, or if they would like to take charge of an entire course, for instance, or a course section. So I just expect them to be joint participants and be honest about what they want to get out of it and work as hard as I do.
The type of experience I want to give them is I want them to work with me in thinking through some of the things we do, like what kinds of questions are going to be on an exam, what kind of format should it be, all essay, or they're going to be short answer questions, and different things of that sort, so that they're getting a full experience on what teaching entails. They grade the exams, and we talk about the grading rubric that they be using, and then I've also had them teach probably 5 to 6 what you might call lectures. I don't like that term because it's too one way, but at least 5 to 6 a semester. So they get experience doing that, so that when they leave Vanderbilt, they have a packet of course evaluations that help them in getting a teaching or a faculty position.
In comparing the expectations between a professor and a TA, I would say that when I have a TA, I expect them not maybe to be as knowledge in that field or have a lot of background in it, but maybe be more up to date on what's going on now in that field.
I understand that the TA is still a student and they're learning at the time, and so not to have as high as expectations of them knowing the material, but that they're willing to go out of their way to find the answers that I need.
Have a little bit more of a personable relationship, kind of allowing for more time and a better understanding of where I'm coming from and my workload and my understanding of the topics.
They can spend so much time TAing, and even though it's to my benefit, I have to help work with them to monitor. So that if the expectation is that they're spending 10 hours a week on that class, even though there may be more than 20 hours a week to do that we're splitting, that in fact we talk about kind of what's fair for them and what's appropriate for me as the faculty member. So I think my challenges have been more in helping them get clear expectations about what they should be spending their time on, for instance. And let's not be spending your time 10 hours grading when in fact having office hours is more important.
I guess the biggest challenge that I've had with TAs is making sure that there's that line between them being a student and being a friend, because we are closer in age, and so sometimes it's difficult when they are in some of your classes than you're the TA in another class.
Sometimes they're not available when I'm available, or they're kind of absorbed in their own workload and don't find time to help out with their classes that they're assigned. I've usually turned to other students when I've encountered challenges with TAs. Usually if we band together, we can approach them and figure out a solution to what the problem is.
I've basically just emailed the TA or graduate student, try to get in contact with them, or if you have to, work with a professor in that subject area that can answer your questions.
Realizing that you can fall into a black hole in teaching, and it's really important to set your priorities and communicate and again, make sure that you're both getting what you need to out of the relationship and the opportunity.
I guess the main ways I communicate with them, email is a really big one. We usually have a weekly meeting if I'm doing something that's an ongoing sort of project with folks.
The easiest way for me to communicate with my TA is either during class or through email.
Currently we pass off papers and we will split the responsibility. So for instance, my TA will grade the first half, I'll grade the second half, and then we'll switch them and be sure that we are giving consistent feedback, and then we've both read all the papers.
Usually I'll try to talk to them after class for a few minutes. That's always easiest, or send them an email. and wait for a response.
I guess the biggest thing that I've learned from my TA is that there's more to the material that I'm learning from the classroom, and you can put it in the outside world. The TA has interests that are relevant to the things that I'm learning, but they also are more advanced in their studies, and so seeing where I'm learning now and where that can take me later.
I've learned a lot. My TAs are well read, so I get a lot of really good ideas about current readings or really interesting readings that they've had on, like I said, we're all doing research, and that's what I teach, so they bring in a lot of good resources, as well as just enthusiasm.
I've definitely learned from TAs that teaching is a lot harder than it seems. It's very difficult managing a class of students and trying to get the material across while also following guidelines that are set by the professor in terms of grading and kind of strictness.
I learn a little bit more about maybe some of the things that the students may be concerned about, you know, that I wouldn't know about because they wouldn't approach me about that.
I guess besides information that you're learning in the class, a TA is always helpful if you want to ask questions about grad school or opportunities that are available after you're done studying what you're studying, because they obviously know what the next step is.
The students that I'm working with are usually experienced teachers, and they have a wide variety of experiences. I'm an elementary school teacher. Sometimes I'm working with middle or high school teachers who have a different set of experiences, and I learn things from them every day about classroom practice, about interactions with students. I mean, they come with a huge number of resources, and additionally, you know, sometimes these are students who have taught overseas, they've taught in contexts where I've not taught, and they bring those into the class. So, I mean, it's really a valuable resource for all of our students. It's a valuable resource for me too.
TAs are very helpful in classes, and that they're very much appreciated.
I think that I've just had pretty positive experiences with my TAs, whether they're graduate students or undergraduate students, and I think that they're a benefit to our classroom.